I was fired on a Monday morning. No paperwork, no prior warning. And 5 minutes later, I took a punch to the face in the stairwell on the 18th floor. The hallway still smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee as I stepped out of Logan Price's office. The entire conversation had lasted 3 minutes. He didn't ask me to sit. He just leaned against the edge of his desk, arms crossed, that smug smirk on his face. "We're restructuring. Your role's no longer aligned with our growth model," he said, as if reading from a script he'd rehearsed 100 times. I didn't answer. I only gave him one nod. Measured, cold, then turned and walked out. It wasn't the first time I'd seen someone get cut without warning. Logan had made it a habit over the past 3 months, firing anyone who didn't hit KPIs or, more often, anyone who questioned his methods. His mantra was always the same. Dead weight slows momentum. Don't scroll, because what happened in the last 30 seconds changed everything. Instead of taking the elevator down, I turned toward the stairwell. Quieter. Fewer eyes. Safer, maybe. I hadn't even reached the 3rd step when I heard the door creak behind me. Footsteps. Heavy. Intentional. Logan. "You think you're clever, huh?" he muttered behind me. "You and your ancient systems. You thought we wouldn't outgrow that?" I kept walking, one hand trailing the rail. "Walk away, Logan." He didn't. "You act like you built this company," he barked, "but you're just another name in the logs." The punch came without a wind-up. Hard, straight into my ribs. I staggered into the wall, catching myself against the railing. His breath was close, his voice lower now. "Consider it a parting gift," he said, then turned and walked out as casually as he'd punched me. I didn't chase him. I didn't yell. I stayed there, letting the sharp pain in my ribs pulse in rhythm with my breath. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I opened an app labeled System Mirror, a tool we'd been testing in the security division months ago. I'd been the one to authorize the HR trial cameras in lesser-used areas, stairwells, loading bays, and server rooms. Most of the execs had forgotten about them. Logan never even knew. The camera in this stairwell had gone online last week. I smiled, bitterly. As I walked down the stairs, my body ached, but my mind was already clearing. Logan thought it was over. But that punch, that was his 5th mistake. 4 other incidents had already been swept under the rug. A slammed laptop, a shoved intern, a broken chair thrown at a junior. HR always called them misunderstandings. This time, he forgot about the one thing he couldn't control: the feed. Vanessa from HR passed me on the mezzanine level. Her eyes flicked to my chest, then up to my face. She saw the tension, the stiffness, the small smudge on my collar. She opened her mouth as if to ask something, then didn't. Of course she didn't. Nobody ever did. Not out loud. I stepped outside into the Seattle morning, air cold, drizzle just starting to fall. I exhaled once, long and steady, and walked toward the parking garage. The pain in my ribs was nothing. Not compared to what was coming. I didn't need to strike back today. I already had the footage. I already had the timeline. All I needed now was silence. I didn't say anything. But I knew. HR had just upgraded the pilot camera system last week, and I was the one who approved it. I don't usually hold grudges, but digital archives do. They remember everything: the time, the angle, the compression level of the video. They don't forget who threw the punch or who turned away. So while Logan thought the stairwell incident ended the moment his fist met my ribs, the camera buried above the fire exit recorded everything. I spent Tuesday morning in silence. No alarm clock, no team check-in, no Slack pings from ops, just the faint hum of my backup server kicking in as I booted up my rig at home. I sat at the edge of my kitchen counter, coffee going cold beside me, and began combing through the system mirror logs. The footage was there, crystal clear, time-stamped, angle facing down from the northeast corner of the stairwell. It caught Logan following me in, shouting, stepping forward. The punch, my shoulder hitting the wall, his smirk as he walked away. The silence after. 2 folders down, buried inside an old admin shell I used to test camera redundancy, I found it. Mirror 2. A secondary log I'd designed in case the main server failed. Nobody knew about it, not even Travis. I copied the clip, encrypted it, and uploaded a duplicate to a private cloud node only I had keys to. I labeled the folder a Sentinel 0925, just in case. My phone vibrated, a text from a name I hadn't seen in months. Travis Reed. He'd been CTO before Logan muscled him out under the guise of streamlined decision-making. His message was simple. I heard. He's done this before. Be careful. I called him. We didn't waste time on pleasantries. He's escalating, I said. Got physical. There was a pause on the other end. Same playbook. Punch first, redact later. I could hear the clink of ceramic, a coffee mug. He used to call it stress relief. My jaw tightened. He's sloppy this time. There's a camera. Then bury him, Travis said. By afternoon, I'd moved on to deeper threads. System Mirror wasn't just for video. It also picked up anomalies in admin logs. That's when I saw it. A series of silent invoice approvals under a shell entity called Data Unity Incorporated. The name was generic, forgettable. But the domain linked to Gwen Price, Logan's younger sister. The company had no real website, just a landing page and an investor contact form. But the payouts were real. 5 figures, then 6. Recurring. I spun up a forensic script to pull logs from the finance system. While the front end looked clean, the back end audit trail told another story. File access timestamps didn't match the approval logs. Someone was manipulating metadata, and all of it pointed to a 2-person pattern. Logan issued the budget reallocations. Someone named E.S., Emily Sharp from finance, signed off. I paused only when a new message popped up. It was from Celia Ho. She worked HR, quiet, always at her desk during lunch hours. The message was short. I saw what happened. The camera was active. I won't say anything, unless you need me to. I read it twice, then replied, Don't do anything yet. Just watch. I leaned back in my chair. Logan had leverage over people like Evan, our new team lead, young, eager, replaceable. But I didn't. What I had was data. Quiet, unshakable, time-stamped proof. The kind of truth that doesn't scream. It just waits. If I go down, I'll make sure the records won't go with me. I dropped a second USB stick into my safe, one containing the raw footage, and another with the ledger clone from finance. It wasn't enough to have one plan. I needed redundancies. I wasn't in IT anymore. But I still knew the locks better than the ones holding the keys. A new message appeared on my laptop. This one from an unlisted Slack account that hadn't been active in over 6 months. The username, @accessrecover. A familiar signature. Someone was already scanning Mirror 2. That someone had access to my old credentials. They're getting nervous. Good. They threatened to fire Celia if anyone leaked footage. If she loses her job, she's not going alone. And neither am I. The timer blinked silently on my screen. Scheduled send, 9 a.m. Wednesday. The email sat poised in my drafts folder. Subject line, regarding incident, Logan Price, October 2nd, 2025. Attached were the stairwell footage, a report log, and a set of anonymized witness statements I hadn't collected, but reconstructed from timestamps and access records. A little trick I picked up from auditing security logs last winter. The system was simple. If the email wasn't manually canceled before the hour struck, it would send to the full board of directors, the internal ethics committee, and a trusted journalist I'd worked with, back when I was still building SafeGenic's early privacy architecture. But this wasn't about publicity. This was insurance. I got up early, skipped breakfast. My ribs still ached with every step, but it grounded me, kept my focus tight. By 7:30, I was already scanning finance traffic logs again. That's when I noticed something strange. Mirror 2's ping rate had dropped by 40% overnight. At first glance, it looked like server maintenance. But we never scheduled those during weekdays, especially not mid-quarter. I tunneled in and ran a deeper check. 3 login attempts, same IP subnet, admin privileges, 1 successful access around 3:12 a.m. And the name tied to that session? Evan Tron. It burned quietly under my skin. Evan had been my backup, my protege for almost 2 years. I vouched for him, coached him through 3 major updates, even shielded him when layoffs circled last fall. Now he was the one sniffing through the logs I'd buried like landmines. Worse, he'd gotten past the first encryption layer on Mirror 2. Only someone with deep access or guidance could have known where to look. Which meant one thing. Logan knew. I ran a trace on Evan's recent commits. 3 code pushes aligned with the timeline of Logan's data manipulation. Obfuscated field injections. Silent deletions in audit trails. Nothing overt. Nothing careless. But unmistakably intentional. I stood at the window, watching the city shift beneath the morning haze. It wasn't anger I felt. It was resolve. This was never going to be clean. I knew that when I backed up the first set of logs. But seeing Evan's fingerprints in the wreckage stung deeper than I expected. He wasn't just covering for Logan. He was enabling him. At 8:46, a new ping arrived on my backup phone. Confirming HR access to board logs. C. Celia, always concise. Always on the line between caution and quiet rebellion. It meant the packet would land exactly where it needed. I checked the email one last time. Then I did what I had planned from the beginning. I clicked, Activate Timer Lock. If I disappear, the email goes out. If my power is cut, it goes out. If I'm logged out from all devices, it goes out. I had set it to a chain of logic triggers that only I knew how to unwind. And then I waited. I didn't reach for another log. I didn't scan Slack. I just sat still. At 8:59, the screen dimmed. At 9 a.m., it flashed. Email sent. This wasn't an attack. It was a signal flare. I stepped outside. The wind bit harder than I expected. My ribs throbbed. But inside me, something settled. I wasn't hiding anymore. Not behind firewalls. Not behind NDAs. Not behind second chances. I just dropped the match, and I was ready to watch it burn. Emails don't scream when they land. They hum, quiet, steady, disruptive, like a frequency only predators, and those being hunted, can hear. By 9:07 a.m., the first tremor hit. An emergency calendar invite labeled Operations Review, Attendance Mandatory, popped up, issued by Erica Mathers, board liaison, and someone not known for dramatics. 15 minutes later, the Slack channels began to quiet, as if the company collectively held its breath. By 9:30, Logan hadn't responded publicly. Not a message, not an all-hands post. Nothing. That told me everything. He was spiraling behind closed doors, looking for a way to patch the flood before anyone could swim. I didn't go in. That would have been a mistake. I stayed remote, watched the internal network from my sandbox terminal, observing data patterns like a storm chaser. VPN logins surged. A spike in access to HR records, then legal compliance folders. He was scrambling. But so were his allies. At 10:12, something unexpected blinked into view. A script. Small, discreet, targeted. It was designed to overwrite the timestamp on a specific video file stored in the Mirror 2 archive. That file. The stairwell footage. I traced the author ID, Evan again. But this time, the signature was dirty. Rushed. He hadn't used a proxy chain, hadn't masked his credential tags. Sloppy work. Desperate. So I let it run. I watched his overwrite command complete. The video timestamp changed. The file looked clean. Then I triggered the decoy. I had set a mirrored archive weeks ago with a checksum trap. Any modification to the footage would flag the file as forged and automatically generate a forensic report. Within 5 seconds, the system did just that and mailed a copy to Erica, Celia, and 2 board-level tech officers. It wasn't just that Evan tried to erase the evidence. It was that I had proof he tried. And now, so did the people with power to act. At 10:35, the second emergency meeting appeared. Board-level security breach response. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just leaned back in my chair, one hand on the armrest, and let the silence fold around me. Then a ping. Private message. From Erica. 4 words. We need to talk. That's when I knew the walls were closing in, but not around me. I replied, ready when you are. 10 seconds later, be in the lobby. Noon. They weren't just calling Logan in. They were calling everyone. He was going to try one more move. I could feel it. A last-minute pivot. Some redirection play. Maybe pin the blame on Evan. Maybe claim the footage was AI fabricated. But the window for misdirection was gone. The triggers had all fired. And now the board was watching. Eyes wide open. I stepped away from the terminal and picked up my badge. Time to step out of the shadows. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than it should have. Not because of the time, because of the weight. I wasn't carrying a briefcase or a hard drive. Just myself. And the certainty that today was the day things broke. Open or apart. The lobby outside the boardroom was cold, sterile. Erica stood by the glass partition, phone to her ear, voice low and clipped. She nodded when she saw me, then turned away from whoever was on the other end and pushed open the door. Inside, Logan was already seated, alone at one end of the conference table, jacket off, sleeves rolled. His posture had changed, less dominant, more calculated. He didn't look at me when I walked in. That silence said everything. Erica took the center seat, flanked by 2 internal board members and a compliance officer I recognized only from the org chart. Celia was there too, standing against the wall like a shadow with purpose. We've received several troubling items, Erica began, eyes scanning each face like a slow scan line. Video evidence, ledger inconsistencies, and a timestamp forgery attempt traced to your former team. Her voice was neutral, clinical, but her words cut clean. Logan leaned forward, resting both elbows on the table. This is a smear, an orchestrated leak from someone with an axe to grind. His eyes flicked to me, venom behind the smile. Disgruntled employees do desperate things. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Erica slid a tablet across the table to the compliance officer, who tapped the screen once and mirrored it to the main display. The stairwell footage played. No cuts, no edits, no sound. Just the impact, the recoil, the walk away. No one in the room spoke. Then Erica tapped again, showing the checksum log. Tampering attempt at 3:12 a.m., executed under Evan Tran's credentials. Evidence of script obfuscation, cross-checked and confirmed. Logan shifted. That's circumstantial. Evan had access. He could have been framed. But the words landed flat. The board member on the left turned to Erica. And Emily Sharp. Erica nodded. Compliance flagged her for false ledger entries linked to shell vendors. Funds rerouted through Gwen Price's dummy corporation. She turned to me. Confirmed by the whistleblower's forensic logs. That word, whistleblower, didn't need explanation. Not anymore. Logan finally looked at me. Really looked. But there was no rage now, just the dawning clarity of a man watching his kingdom crack. This wasn't a confrontation. It was a reckoning. You're not ready for how this ends. Trust me. Stay until the last line. The boardroom emptied slower than it had filled. Erica stayed behind, scrolling through her tablet, while Logan sat motionless, no longer posturing, just watching everything slip. I didn't move from my spot. There was no victory rush, no sense of triumph, just the sound of the air conditioner humming overhead and the quiet ticking of a clock on the far wall. The kind of silence that follows something irreversible. "Logan Price," Erica finally said, without looking up. "Effective immediately. Your access is suspended pending further investigation. Legal will reach out." Her voice was mechanical, professional, but final. He didn't argue. Maybe because there was nothing left to say. Or maybe because he knew the moment had passed, the one where he could spin, distract, dominate. That window was gone, and the footage didn't blink. Logan stood, collected his jacket, and walked out without a word. When the door closed behind him, Erica exhaled quietly. "We'll need a full transition plan. You'll be asked to participate." She looked at me, and for the first time, there was something close to respect in her tone. "You knew when to strike. That matters." I gave her a nod. I didn't want a coup, just accountability. Outside, the office felt changed, quieter. People glanced up when I passed, some with curiosity, others with recognition. No one asked questions. They didn't need to. By now, they knew something had broken. And maybe, just maybe, something better could take its place. I found Celia near the break room. She didn't smile, but her eyes met mine with a sharp, silent acknowledgement. "You all right?" she asked. "Enough," I said. "It's done." "Not quite." She handed me an envelope. "The board wants to bring you in, interim advisory role. They said you've earned it." I didn't open it, just held it for a second. The weight of it wasn't in the paper. It was in everything it meant. That the guy who got punched in the stairwell wasn't just getting justice, he was getting the keys. Somewhere behind me, a printer hummed to life. A new badge being made. Not for Logan. Not anymore. I walked back to my desk for the first time in days. The monitor blinked on. The system still remembered me. And this time, I wasn't logging in to hide. I was logging in to rebuild. Logan's silence as he walked out wasn't defeat. It was the sound of power collapsing under the weight of its own arrogance. The man who once ruled through fear had finally been stripped by the very systems he thought he controlled. Justice didn't come with noise or spectacle. It arrived quietly, through proof, patience, and precision. Like a lock snapping open after years of pressure, truth held firm while deception unraveled. Because no wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. Thanks for watching. And to them, if you're seeing this, I'm not done yet.